Welcome to Moon Me, an astrology podcast where we explore astrology, tarot, psychology, and astrocartography. With your hosts, Roxy and Izzy, we dive into the connections between the stars and the self. Hello and welcome. My name's Roxy.
And I'm Izzy.
And this is our podcast, Moon Me, an astrology podcast. Izzy, if you don't mind to introduce the podcast a little bit, maybe you can tell us or our listeners what to
Yeah.
expect.
Yeah, so we are two really good friends who met here in Madrid, where we both live. And we decided to launch this podcast because we're both astrologers who love astrology. And basically, it's our first episode today, but we're going to be talking about all things astrology, certain like intersections with tarot, astrocartography, psychology, just how astrology could be applicable to all parts of our lives. Some episodes are going to have guests, some will just feature ourselves. And yeah, we're just going to be talking about all things astrology. And so, yeah, welcome. Thanks for being here with us.
Yes, exactly. We found that a lot of the time we're hanging out, we were just talking about astrology anyways, so we might as well record it and share what we know with you guys and hear what you think about it too. We're kind of trying to create a community and have some fun and connect with you guys. So thanks for being here today. This is episode one, so we are going to, describe ourselves a little bit, introduce ourselves. We are going to show our charts, talk a little bit about how the energy has shown up in our lives, and maybe that can be something that you relate to. So, if there's anything you wanted to add, Izzy?
No, I mean, I think we can introduce ourselves now and talk a little bit about our businesses and ourselves, who we are, how we met, and yeah, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. So, as I mentioned, I'm Roxy from Stars with Rocks. I am a professional astrologer and tarot reader, among other things. I have a lot of hobbies, a lot of creative projects. I did study psychology, and my plan was to be a therapist, but my plan digressed, and now I am a teacher, astrologer, dancer, tons of different things. I guess if I had to describe my personality, and we'll get a little bit more into that when we are talking about our charts, but I would say I'm kind of an adventurous, a little bit weird. I get easily bored. And as I mentioned, I have tons of hobbies. How about you, Izzy? You can go ahead.
So yeah, I am Izzy. I'm originally from New York City, but moved to Madrid about 6 years ago, and I am also an astrologer. I am not a tarot reader, but I do love getting readings from Roxy. But I am also an astrocartographer, so that's like basically a subdiscipline of astrology, that works with identifying like your most aligned locations based on your chart and your relocated charts and all of that. And so that's kind of like the niche that I specialize in. I studied journalism in university, and I did work as a journalist for several years, on and off. I've also worked as a teacher. Roxy and I both teach like EFL. And yeah, I love writing. My thing is writing. I write in astrology and astrocartography Substack. Like I'm a really, really big on writing, especially newsletters. I also do love dance, but I don't do it. I wouldn't say I do it as professionally as Roxy. I like yoga. I love hiking. I love being in nature, although where we live is a bit far removed from nature, unfortunately. Yeah, traveling. I would say I'm also a pretty adventurous person. Very spontaneous. That if I could describe myself in one word, it would be, yeah, very, very spontaneous.
Awesome. So I was thinking we could maybe pull up our charts and chat a little bit about that. How does that sound?
Yeah, yeah, let's do it.
All right. So first, I'm going to bring up. Well, first of all, the transits right now. We are recording this on October 18th around 12:48 p.m. in Spain. which essentially there's not too much going on, but we've had a lot of big transits lately. Pluto's moved into Aquarius. Saturn has gone back into Pisces for a little while. And we do have a new moon coming up on Monday in Libra. Did you want to add anything there, Izzy? Or should I go ahead and pull up my chart?
No, you could go ahead. I know Pluto, yeah, Pluto just went direct
Mm.
after being in retrograde, so that we're probably gonna be feeling that shift, like more plans and like things coming to fruition like faster. Things are gonna feel faster, I think.
Yeah, I think with some of these big transits has been quite impactful on the collective. I think we're all feeling it in some ways. But yeah, we'll get into that into some later episodes. So on the screen now is my chart, and as you can see, I am a Capricorn rising. Capricorn rising, I'm a Sagittarius moon, and my sun is in Pisces. For a second, I was missing the last of the big three. So yeah, I feel like my Pisces sun, it feels a little bit distant. I don't always feel connected to that energy, but I do have Mercury in Pisces as well. I guess for me, it comes through in my creativity, the way I think and the way I talk, but also create art, whether it's dancing or painting or whatever that may be. Everything is art, essentially, is the way my mind works. But, with my Sag moon, I'm very adventurous. I like to travel. I lived in Asia for about 11 years, and now I'm in Spain, as Izzy mentioned earlier. So, yeah, there's a lot of travel, a lot of connection with different cultures. I am a Capricorn rising, but currently in my relocated chart is I'm a Scorpio rising. And I feel like that has been incredibly impactful. I met Izzy around the time where I started looking into my relocated chart. And maybe Izzy, you can help me out here to describe a little bit what my Scorpio rising might be like in Madrid, especially considering that I'm a Cap rising in my natal chart.
Yeah, so like Roxy and I have talked about this a lot, because our relocated charts changed a lot, like compared to our original birth charts in Spain.
Mm,
So, we talked a lot about like how your fashion sense changed a lot and how you kind of feel like you're more willing to take risks here,
mm,
and like how you felt a lot more like you didn't really necessarily like you felt a little bit more, you told me like that you felt more subdued when you're like with your cap rising, but that here you're like more inclined to take risks, like you're more daring in like your fashion choices, your interests, like the type of dance you do and all of that.
mm,
And so yeah, we've talked about how that's shown up for you and also how like you are very, like you said, your perceptive abilities haven't increased here. Like you're more, I don't know if the word would be selective, but yeah, like discerning. You said you,
totally.
and I think Pluto shifted to your first house because you're in the Pluto and Scorpio generation.
Mm,
Um, so you said you feel like some more intensity here as well. I think you
yeah.
had said that.
Absolutely. And really, something that I don't think is spoken enough about Scorpio rising is the effect it has on other people. I've noticed that some people are
Intimidation.
drawn to me, other people are immediately triggered, right? I feel like that's the thing with Scorpio rising. But yeah, so I've noticed that. But to get back to my natal chart, I guess I'm also going through a bit of that Capricorn awakening, shall we say. I feel like we spend a lot of time not resonating with our rising sign. And then as we get a bit older, we start to realize that we're embodying that energy a bit more. Would you say that that's your experience?
I would say absolutely, especially like post my Saturn return. I kind of had like a later Saturn return because I have a late degree Saturn.
Hmm.
And so I feel like definitely post my Saturn return, like I started to like I feel like embody more groundedness and responsibility and like practicality. And I used to be like when I was younger, especially I want to say my like teens and early 20s, like I was I was not grounded. I was the opposite of grounded, and I feel like upon turning like I want to say 27,
Hmm.
even 26, like a lot of things changed. Like my priorities changed, my outlook changed. I think for the better. I think I needed it. I was very not grounded, and I'm not trying to put myself down or anything, but
Okay.
I think I was very much leaning into my Mars, which is Sagittarius.
Hmm.
And I don't know, I guess being Saturn ruled, and after going through my Saturn return, like I think I started leaning more into like my rising sign for
Hmm.
sure, and the traits of it and everything, and kind of started to embody that more. But I do agree it takes longer, I think, to start to embody those traits for
Yeah.
real.
So actually, let me pull up your chart, and if you don't mind, chat to us a little bit about your energy and how it's shown up for you.
Yeah, so my big three, I'm a Scorpio sun, Libra moon, and Capricorn rising. So yeah, we're both Cap risings. We already said that. And I've got a massive Scorpio stellium, and we're using whole sign in this case. And so I've got a massive Scorpio stellium in the 11th house.
Mhm.
And I definitely feel like that resonates with me a lot. Like I've got a very intense personality. I also feel like I'm not a I'm not a Scorpio rising, nor do I have it in my relocated chart the way you do, but I definitely feel that whole thing of like people are either like gravitating towards us with people with heavy Scorpio energy, or they're kind of repelled or very intimidated. Um,
Absolutely.
and so, but with it being in the 11th house, like I feel like I definitely like have friends all over the world. I'm very like, I'm a person who is like doesn't need to be friends with just one type of person. Like I have friends who are really into astrology. I have friends who don't believe in it. I have friends who are much more like quote unquote rational. Um, all types of people, all types of backgrounds. And I've lived in Morocco before. I've lived in the US and Spain. So I think like my that's very reflected by my Mars in Sagittarius. Like there I've always had this desire to like explore and like learn through experiences and exploration. And my North Node is also in Sagittarius. And so it's
Purpose.
interesting because my South Node's in Gemini, and I feel like I do have the shadow of Gemini. Like I have a lot of mental chatter in my brain all the time. Um, and so yeah, I feel like my Libra moon shows up a lot in my fashion and my like aesthetic sense. And also I am the queen of deliberating. I could be so indecisive, but I do feel like in my relocated chart, my ascendant shifted to Aries, and I did become a little bit more decisive and more like impulsive when it comes to making decisions, but I feel like I kind of needed that. Um, and my Lilith shifted to the first house too. So yeah, I feel like I am definitely a bit more decisive than I was. Yeah, I would deliberate a lot when I was younger, and I still find myself doing it sometimes with the Libra moon.
Mhm. Yeah, I wanted to ask you because I have a stellium in Aquarius in my second house. And I see that you have Saturn in Aquarius in the second house. So, because you're Saturn ruled like me, I wonder how has this shown up in your life in the second house?
Um, I would say it's definitely manifested in different ways, right? So like the only planet I have in my second is Saturn. You have more. So probably a bit it's definitely different.
Hmm.
Um I guess like as I've gotten older, like, Aquarius is kind of about like our individuality and like asserting our individuality and like kind of not giving into groupthink. And so I feel like again, as I've gotten older, like I'm very, and the second house does rule over like material possessions and values, but also like your personal values. Like, what do you find important? And I think like this placement plus my Mars and Sag has made me like very principled.
Hmm.
Like I have very strong principles. I feel like I'm kind of obnoxious with that sometimes. Like, I'm a bit like strict on my principles, but also like, um, it's been hard, I guess, like with my relationship with money, I've had to do a lot of healing
Mm,
um on that because there's just always been this thing where like, oh, like I could have everything and lose it tomorrow and like nothing's promised and I wouldn't say I have a lack mindset or a scarcity mindset, but I definitely have like some fears around money and like losing it and I waver from being really, really responsible with money to like spending really recklessly sometimes.
mhm.
And Saturn kind of tends in your chart tends to show like where you might have faced some obstacles and where you may not be like a natural at something, you
Right.
know.
It's something that requires a certain amount of learning, a certain amount of discipline, shall we say. Yeah, so I have Venus and Mars along with Saturn in the second house, and I'm pretty sure the song Big Spender was written about me because that's what I do. With that Mars, very impulsive spending. Um, but I've learned, especially after my Saturn return, where I met the driest of months in terms of money. I came out of that with a sense of discipline, a sense of knowing how to manage money, or at least the first steps. And even now, a few years after my Saturn return, I'm rebuilding that. But it's been one of the most difficult journeys for me to, number one, care about money, but then, as you mentioned, that sense of value of self. So it shows up for me very strongly in my earning potential. It's really uncomfortable for me to ask for my worth from employers, from pretty much anything in terms of actual money and my services, my skills. So, I do want to share a little bit about how we got into astrology, our astrology origin story, if you will, how we fell in love with it, how we got to this point. Maybe Izzy, you can go ahead and start.
Yeah, so I started really getting into astrology around the age of 18, 19, I would maybe say no more, like 19.
Mhm.
One of my best friends back in New York, had shown me this app. It was like a daily horoscope app. And I I didn't really love the app, but it it like sparked my curiosity in astrology. I was like, okay, I really want to like understand where this like horror because I'm a Scorpio stellium. And I have a Scorpio Mercury. I like love going deep like
Mm,
into different topics. Like and if it appeals to me, if I'm curious about it, I'll go on in a rabbit hole. Like I'll go down a rabbit hole. And so that's when I started like buying books or like checking out books in the library um about astrology and I started reading a lot of books and I've always loved YouTube, so I started finding kind of astrologers on YouTube who kind of resonate with me. There's one who I love. She's also a New Yorker, actually, and her handle on YouTube is Force of Nature. She's so funny, and I feel like her like interpretations are so spot on. And then yeah, from there, like I started just learning kind of on my own how to read charts and how to, what are the planets, what are the houses, what are the aspects. Like I got deeper and deeper and deeper into it. And then eventually like I traveled to Morocco and I lived there for several months for a study abroad and I felt so different there. Like I felt like I was a different person when I was there and I wanted to find like what was the astrological reason for that, and that's how I came across astrocartography and relocated charts. And then I started studying astrocartography later on. And then finally I had people tell me because I would just read like during COVID especially, I would read charts like for free, just literally for fun, or just if people wanted to pay me, I don't know, $20, $30, I would just do it. And then like friends of mine, people I worked with were like, you should like do this as a business. Like, it could be really lucrative. And you're like, they really liked what I was doing. And so, like, about a year and a half ago, launched Your Stellar Truth. And I offer one-on-one sessions with whether that's for astrology or astrocartography. Um, and yeah, I've just kind of created a whole world like with the Substack, my blog. Um, I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, and yeah, that's basically my astrology journey in like 5 minutes, right? And what about you, Roxy? Because we met at a birthday party and we struck up a conversation and someone told me that she was also an astrologer. And you don't meet many other astrologers. Like it's not like the most common profession. I mean,
Right.
there's a lot of us out there, but
Yeah.
yeah, why don't you share your story about how you got into it?
Yeah, definitely. I also wanted to add to what you said about astrocartography because I did, of course, briefly study a bit about it, and it was interesting to me. But it only really sparked my curiosity and my intense, like, what would I say, desire to learn more about it after I met you, because after you gave me that astrocartography reading, it resonated so much. And I started to realize, being a seasoned traveler, as you are as well, I started to realize that I felt completely different in different places. For example, there were some places that people recommended to me. They were like, you have to go there. It's the most incredible country, the most incredible city. And I would go and have a completely different experience. And I think the same applied to when I was referring other people, referring places to other people. And after chatting to you about, my relocated chart here, it all really kind of came together, and that sparked my interest in astrocartography. But yeah, I mean, that's not something I specialize in. I guess I would say I'm more like a Jungian astrologer, where it's sort of just my sessions are about empowering people and making people feel seen. Um, and really allowing that space for people to chat about who they are and how their energy is expressed in the world. And I find that very fulfilling. But that is not how my journey started. I was actually an atheist. I was not interested in spirituality, for starters, and I was not into quote unquote pseudoscience. So so I was in a quite a different space that I am now. When I was in my early 20s, I started to get a little bit more into spirituality and my mind opened. And I'm not saying that that needs to be the gateway to astrology by any means, because at the end of the day, astrology is the study of patterns. It's a century-long case study, if you ask me from my psychological perspective. But fundamentally, that was my gateway. I got into it because I wanted to explore more who I was spiritually. And from there, I got into it, so I started sharing it with people I'd met along the way in my travels, my friends, and more people were saying this resonates. And it started to feel more and more accurate to me, which sparked my curiosity. And just like you, I went down that rabbit hole of intense study and interest. And around the same time, I got into tarot. So I studied both online, got a little diploma in each. And like you, decided to do it for free for a while. Because at that point, I wasn't really sure what I was doing and if I was doing anything at all. Turns out I was, and I've been doing it ever since for about, I don't know, 6 years now. And yeah, I guess that's my story in a nutshell as well.
Yeah, it was super interesting because it's like you studied psychology, so I like that you combine like the two, like the science side and then the like astrological side, and then
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
I think it's really important that we make the clients feel like seen and heard and understood, and because I don't know about you, but like with astrology, I feel like I guess I kind of consider myself an evolutionary astrologer, and I find it like the way I view astrology, it's like I don't like viewing it from a prescriptive way. Like, okay, if you have this placement, you must be having this experience and it
Yeah.
must be like this. Like, I think the important thing is that like different placements in a birth chart could manifest differently. Different transits could affect people differently. Um, like I think of like a Chiron fourth house transit, for example. It's like that could look like losing your literal home, but it could also look like living in a home that doesn't feel like home, or
Right.
um
And depending where you are in life, it can also represent profound healing from early childhood.
yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So
Exactly. And that's all it is, you know, it's really an exchange of information and energy between you and a client. I mean, I would say what you do is a little bit more, I'm trying to find the word. I don't want to say scientific, but it's a little bit more like, okay, this is the line, this is what this line means. Would you say that, or would you say it's also very interpretive?
I would say, yeah, I don't know. I would say that like I have seen different like planetary lines and like relocated chart placements kind of affect people differently. Like take like a Uranus line. Um like some people will say they feel very out of place. They feel very different from everybody else around them
Hmm.
on a certain Uranus line, especially like Uranus DC, like on the descendant.
Hmm.
But then other people will say like I didn't necessarily feel out of place, but there was so much instability, like
Yeah,
so much maybe
Uranus
financial
does that.
instability or just emotional instability or just something was just very unstable. So I do think though even those could manifest differently because there's so many different themes that are associated with the planets, the luminaries, the celestial bodies. So um but yeah, I guess mine is more to there is a bit more of an end goal, yeah, with the clients I work with astrocartography. It's like they really want to find a place that's more aligned with what they're looking for. So it involves a lot of like um yeah, like very in-depth interpretation, but also just like a lot of qualifying questions, like trying to understand what they're looking to attract right now and what they're the energy they're kind of looking to get away from, and or the energy they're trying to understand and work with, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, it makes absolute sense. It's information I wish I had, you know, because originally I am from South Africa, but I think I mentioned before I lived in Taiwan for about 11 years.
Yeah, that's a
We,
long time.
right. And of course, I traveled a lot in those 11 years around Asia. But, you know, looking back at my chart a little bit, it makes total sense. I was a Sagittarius rising in Taiwan. Um,
Oh, I didn't realize that.
yeah,
Yeah, well,
so it was very much my travel era, my 20s. Um, yeah, and now being in Madrid, it's just a totally different energy. So it's fascinating, really. Um, okay, so I was also thinking that maybe, you know, we could talk a little bit about what people can expect from the podcast. Was there anything that you wanted to add before we get into that?
no, like we could, I agree, we should, I guess, talk about yeah, why we started the podcast and what they could expect, and yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess what I would start with is that this podcast is just a way for us to record our actually very natural conversations. Every time we hang
I
out,
love that.
this is what we do, right? So it's a way to share what we know. I love our back and forth because I feel like we work well together in terms of our perspectives, a lot of similarities, and then, you know, like we said earlier, there is an interpretive aspect, and I think we both add a little bit of a difference when it comes to that. But for me, this podcast is about connecting community. It's about fun. It's about looking at astrology in a very real way, how it affects our lives, people's lives, talking about topics like sex and aesthetics and how we can have fun in the expression of our astrology chart and the energy in general. How about you? What is it for you?
Yeah, definitely. It's, I think we really want to, build a community of like people who love astrology, and even if they don't love astrology, people who are curious about it. We really want this to feel like a space where people could really like, interact and learn more about astrology and give us their input and, give us like tell us what they want to learn. And yeah, big, I guess what we really want to do also is just like kind of just talk about how astrology could kind of peep its way into different parts of our lives. and different life situations. We really want this to be something that's really applicable to everyday life, and we really want yeah, we really want people to, learn how they could understand themselves better through astrology. And yeah, we want it to be, accessible and all of that. And even just, we are going to be talking a little bit about psychology, a little like about tarot, about astrocartography, about living abroad, about different types of astrology, maybe different sects of astrology, and yeah, just we really want this to be very, I guess like the word would be like holistic, just covering a lot of different things. But we also want this to be fun. We
Yeah.
want this to be fun, entertaining. Because yeah, we just feel like we have all the Roxy and I, we feel like we have all these conversations all the time that get really in depth, and we kind of just sat down one day and we were like, why don't we start a podcast? Like, why don't we just do
Even
it?
if no one listens, we'd be doing this anyways, so why not?
Yeah, exactly. So it's yeah.
All right, so that's really all I wanted to cover today. Was there anything else you wanted to add, Izzy?
No, thank you for anyone who is watching and supporting us.
Mhm.
If you like what you see, share it with people people you love.
Mhm.
And yeah, spread the joy. And
Yeah, and drop a comment. Let us know that we're not speaking to the vast abyss of nothing. That always helps. And yeah, this has been a lot of fun. I'm really excited to get started and do more and more episodes.
yeah, thank you,
All
everyone.
right,
Thank
thank
you.
you and bye. Thank you for listening to Moon Me, an astrology podcast. We hope our insights have inspired you to explore your own path. Join us next time as we dive deeper into the cosmos with Roxy and Izzy.